Travail continue. On va continuer à faire notre travail. We're going to continue working. Our job is not yet done.
That's Canada's minister responsible for trade with the United States, Dominic LeBlanc, leaving another meeting today with his U.S. counterpart. They're trying to hammer out a deal before a Wednesday deadline that was set by Donald Trump. The U.S. president is threatening to impose 50% tariffs on hundreds more Canadian goods. For more analysis, I'm joined now by Diamond Isinger. She served as a special advisor on Canada-U.S. relations to Justin Trudeau when he was Prime Minister, and Diamond's with me now. So what's Canada going to do if these tariffs kick in?
Well, great question. The Prime Minister has made pretty clear so far that all options are on the table. Although, if I was a betting person, I think he, made some comments about a week ago suggesting a lesser likelihood that natural resource exports, for example, are used as a key bargaining chip here, i.e., with export tariffs being put on them to rise costs for Americans. But in general, we can expect that if we don't reach a deal, that there is some sort of suite of potentially retaliatory options, as well as new and extra supports for these affected Canadian sectors that are going to be hard hit.
And the American threat, which was made repeatedly in the last few days, don't retaliate. How do you process that if you're in the PMO right now?
Yeah, that's a hard one because they have made pretty clear that they don't want to see retaliatory action from the government of Canada. But on the flip side, the president generally responds best of all of the responses to positions of strength. And it's pretty hard for Canada to simply let these 50% tariffs be introduced and calmly take that as a fact of life. Everyday Canadians will also be looking for that kind of action. So I think that's the calculus they have to make.
Now, the Prime Minister Mark Carney said he didn't want to negotiate through the media today, but we're going to do a little bit of it anyway. How do you parse the words and the positions that you've heard from both sides here?
Yeah, today's been an interesting day with some of your colleagues staking out in Washington, folks ambushing the Prime Minister, asking him questions. I mean, between those, we picked up some context clues, including that today Howard Lutnick was in on the conversations as Commerce Secretary. That's a newer addition. He has in past had very strong connections with Minister LeBlanc, a good channel back and forth of information, but more recently, U.S. Trade Rep Jameson Greer has been the primary contact. So I see the Secretary's involvement as potentially an interesting development in perhaps elevating further the importance and significance of two administration senior officials directly involved in these talks to put eventually perhaps something to the President and the Prime Minister for their approval.
Now, if you're Canada and you're looking at your toolbox of leverage that you can potentially apply to the U.S., you do have a domestic political situation in with the American midterm elections coming up. How relevant is that, do you think, for the Canadian negotiators and the people making these decisions? What are they thinking about? How are they factoring that into their calculus?
Well, I think a smart strategy absolutely incorporates that into the reality here. We don't know well, first of all, if at all the government will retaliate, but if it does, if Canada retaliates, what that looks like. But in the past, Canada has actually yielded very successful results with a retaliatory package that targets specific American goods. It was done very successfully in 2017, 2018 during past NAFTA into CUSMA talks between Canada and the U.S. to try to get the U.S. to eventually lift steel and aluminum tariffs at that time. And those affected things like playing card manufacturers in various communities and states. Again, bourbon distillers, some of these other folks affected by provincial liquor bans too. So between all of those elements, that has at times, both economic impact, but very real political effect in terms of local jobs being affected, their elected representatives being, concerned and exercised and voicing those concerns to the administration.
So as the clock ticks down here, what do you see as sort of the best case scenario that they're probably game playing right now for Canada?
Well, absolute best case scenario would be getting to a place of not imposing 50% tariffs and lifting the sectoral tariffs that were previously introduced, steel, aluminum, automotives, lumber products. We're not clear if that's going to happen. An alternative is we get to at least an interim deal or a partial lifting of those tariffs, a reduction of those tariffs on Canada, but it's really not clear what will transpire.
And if you were a betting person, How optimistic are you that this is going to get done by that Wednesday deadline?
I think 50-50 at this point. That's really, I am encouraged by the fact that Canada is still very physically present in Washington right now, having these live conversations. But the biggest, most unpredictable variable is the president himself, who still has yet to our knowledge, directly weigh in on any kind of draft agreement.
Yeah, we've not heard from Donald Trump, and he's the ultimate decider in all of this, I guess.
Well, absolutely. And today the Prime Minister said that he does anticipate speaking to the President between now and Wednesday, which I take to mean tomorrow perhaps, or early Wednesday. But ultimately, they are the deal makers. They are the decision makers, especially the President, in terms of his buy-in, because I'm more confident that Prime Minister Carney has given his team direct instruction.
Diamond, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you.
Diamond Isinger is a former special advisor on Canada-U.S. relations to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau.